There's something worse than indifference, being forgotten. And every morning, without realizing it, millions of men are being forgotten. They think a simple good morning is enough to stay on someone's mind, when in reality, they're becoming invisible. Because she doesn't think about the one who greets her out of habit. She thinks about the one who stirs an emotion, the one who leaves a mark. Listen closely, because I'm about to show you 5 messages that not only catch her attention, but keep you on her mind all day long. The last one won't just make her think of you, it'll make her miss you. I'm Celia, and if you've ever felt like your words didn't leave a mark, this video is for you. Stay until the end. Today, you won't be ignored. Have you ever sent a message in the morning and got no reply? Maybe you sent a good morning hoping for a bit of affection, a wink, a sign she's thinking of you, and all you got was silence. Or worse, a dry, soulless, thanks you too. I get it. Because that hurts more than most of us want to admit. But here's the truth no one tells you. It's not that she doesn't know how to respond. It's that you didn't make her feel anything. And if you don't stir an emotion, you don't exist. Let's start with the first point. The message that activates her emotional instinct. This isn't some cheap seduction trick. It's a vital need for any man who wants to leave a mark. Women don't connect through logic. They connect through what they feel. A soulless good morning is like fake currency. They see it, but they don't value it. The mistake isn't saying it. The mistake is saying it like everyone else. Like a robot repeating the same thing every morning. And that disconnects them. Picture this. A man gets up early, makes his coffee, sits in silence, and thinks about the woman he likes. He's not trying to win her over. He just wants her to know he's there, that he's thinking of her. But instead of writing something real, something that comes from within, he sends the same thing as always. Good morning, hope you have a lovely day. And that's it. Mission accomplished. You know what happens next? Nothing, because that wasn't a message. It was a formality. It didn't touch anything. It didn't trigger anything. It didn't spark anything. It was like throwing a stone into water and expecting a garden to bloom. But now picture something else. That same man remembers a conversation, a little detail, a shared laugh. And instead of sending the usual, he writes, I dreamed about you laughing at that silly thing you told me. I woke up with that laugh of yours stuck in my head. You wouldn't believe how good it made me feel. See the difference? One repeats what's expected, the other creates an image, a memory, a feeling. And that's the key, to light an emotional spark that pulls her out of autopilot and brings her back to you. Because if every morning is an opportunity, then it's also a test. And you don't pass it with copy-paste phrases or lifeless greetings. You pass it with truth, with intention, with messages that don't compete with others because they can't be ignored. What you need isn't to be the first one she hears from, but the only one who makes her close her eyes and think of you. And if you're not ready to take that leap, if you'd rather stick to what's safe, what's correct, what's neutral, then get ready to keep being forgotten. But if you want to stand out, start here. Stop sending empty words and start building emotions that stay with her all day. If the first step is to spark a real emotion, the second is to make sure that spark doesn't vanish into thin air. Because there's no point in lighting a fire if you don't build something that stays with her. We've reached the second key point of this video, and it's the secret of visual language in text. Yes, you read that right. Because even though you're sending words, what you really want is for her to see what you write. Your message shouldn't be just a phrase. It should be a scene in her mind. And for that, you need to understand something most men never stop to think about. Women don't connect with abstract ideas. They connect with images, with sensations they can imagine and relive. The female mind, from a psychological perspective, is more wired for emotional connection than the male mind. Not out of weakness, but by evolutionary design. While we were shaped by the logic of direct action, they learned to read nuances, to interpret subtleties, to find meaning in emotion. They're not looking for information, they're looking for vibration. And that's where so many men fail. They think a message is just content, when in reality it's a sensory doorway. If you don't activate her senses, you won't activate her interest. Stoic philosophy talks about the power of perception. It's not the events that disturb us, but the meaning we give to them. And that fits perfectly here. When you send something flat, like, "Hope you have a great day," her brain processes it as just another echo in the noise of the world. But if you use visual language, if you make her imagine, relive, smell, hear, then she doesn't just receive words, she receives an experience. For example, saying, "I woke up to the smell of coffee and pictured you sitting in front of your cup with that half-asleep look that gives me so much peace," is 1,000 times more powerful. Because now there's a scene, now there's an image, and that image carries your name. This isn't poetry or cheap romance, it's emotional neuropsychology. You're training her brain to associate you with pleasant sensations, and the richer the scene you paint, the more present you'll be in her day. You're not writing to impress, you're writing to become imprinted, like an emotional photograph she can't erase, even if she tried. And here's the best part. You don't need to be a poet or have a wild imagination. You just need to observe. Remember the details. Use what you already know about her. If you've truly been listening, you already have everything you need to build those little landscapes in her mind, where you are the main character. So stop writing like a voice recorder and start thinking like a creator of experiences, because a powerful message isn't one that's read quickly, it's one that's never forgotten. If you've already understood that you need to spark an emotion and then build an image to keep it alive, then you're ready for the third step. We've arrived at the third point of this video, and this is where everything starts to shift. The dopamine trigger no one's using. Because yes, even if you didn't know it, a good morning message can actually work like a chemical switch that makes her feel good, with you on her mind. And if you can link your presence to that pleasant sensation, she won't forget you anytime soon. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of desire, of anticipated pleasure. It's not released when we get something, but when we expect to get something. It's that feeling of something good is coming. So what does that have to do with your messages? Everything. Because if you can make her anticipate that every time you text her, she'll feel something warm, emotional, or intimate, then she'll start looking forward to your messages. And when that happens, you're no longer just another notification. You become an emotional habit. How do you do that? With micro details that spark pleasure. I'm not talking about cheesy lines or quotes pulled from the internet. I'm talking about gently reminding her of something that makes her feel seen. For example, "Hope that perfume you wear stays with you today, like that smile of yours that's been stuck in my head." You're not being obvious. You're creating a moment. You're sparking a sensory expectation. You're generating dopamine. And the best part? It doesn't have to be elaborate. It just has to make her feel like you know her, that you remember something unique about her, that your message isn't for just anyone, it's for her, only her. A real example, an older man, divorced, started talking to a woman he liked. Every morning he sent her something different, but there was always one constant, an emotional detail tied to her. One day it was a song, another day it was a phrase she'd once said, and he'd held on to. And without her ever saying it before, one day she admitted, "When I wake up, I'm already waiting for your message. It changes my day." See, it's not magic, it's emotional science, and anyone can use it, if they're paying attention and willing to stand out. Before we move on to the next message, take a moment. If you feel like these ideas could help you shift the way you connect, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. I'd love to know where in the world you're watching from, so drop your country in the comments. And if this message resonates with you, just write, "I'm going to leave a mark." There are still powerful lessons ahead, and the last one, believe me, it'll be the most decisive of all. You've already learned how a message can spark desire, paint a vivid image, and stir deep emotions. But even with all that, there's one thing that can silently sabotage everything without you even noticing. And that's why we're now at the fourth point of this video, the mirror message that makes her feel understood. This is where many fail, not because they lack the right words, but because they use them the wrong way, because they focus on saying instead of reflecting. And that's one of the most common and destructive mental traps. Believing that connection is about talking about yourself, when in reality, it's about helping her see herself in what you say. The mistake lies in trying to impress, in crafting clever, deep, or seductive lines, without realizing she's not looking to see you. She's looking to see herself in what you share. That's the key. If she doesn't feel recognized, valued, or understood in your message, she'll forget it the second another notification lights up her screen. It's an emotional perception issue. Most men are so focused on what they want to say, they forget what she needs to feel, and that ruins any chance of real connection. So why is it so hard to avoid this trap? Because since we were kids, we were taught that being interesting means speaking well, knowing things, showing strength or intelligence. But no one taught us to listen with someone else's eyes, to see the world from her window. The mirror message works because it turns your text into a space where she feels seen without being judged, valued without having to expose herself. It's that moment when she reads something and thinks, "How did he know? That's exactly what I'm going through." And when you do that, you become rare, you become valuable. Because in a world full of men who want to speak, you're the one who gets it. But be careful. This isn't about being overly agreeable or faking empathy. It's about paying attention, about remembering something she once told you, picking up on a nuance, writing something like, "I remembered what you told me the other night," about how sometimes you feel like you give too much and no one notices. "I just wanted you to know I noticed." Do you see the impact in a message like that? You're not giving advice. You're not trying to fix anything. You're just saying, "I heard you. I understood you. I see you." And for a woman, that's worth more than 1,000 flowers or empty promises. The mirror message lowers her defenses. Because you're not intruding, you're accompanying. You're not shouting, you're reflecting. And that kind of connection doesn't fade, because it's not based on what you feel, but on what you make her feel. That's the difference between being read and being remembered. Between passing through her life and settling quietly in her mind, with strength but without noise. A lot of men think the key is to say something original. No, the key is saying what she needs to hear, drawn from what's already hers. If you can do that, if your message becomes her mirror, you're on the right path. But if you keep sending empty words, cliches, or generic texts, you'll blend into the crowd, and you weren't born to be just another one. We've reached the fifth and final point of this video, and it couldn't be more crucial, the emotional signature that makes you unforgettable. Because if after everything you've learned, you're still ending your messages like everyone else, with a "take care," a "have a nice day," or worse, with nothing at all, then everything you built collapses like a house of cards. And the worst part, you don't even realize it. You think you did everything right, that the message was deep, visual, emotional, but you didn't leave a mark. You didn't sign it with your soul, and that makes you replaceable. Do you know what the real tragedy is? That many men, especially after 50, get used to being forgotten, to their words having no echo, to their presence stirring nothing. It's as if they've internalized the idea that their impact is gone, that their moment has passed, that someone else has taken their place. But that's not true. The problem isn't age. The problem is they're still using language like young men fighting for attention, instead of using it like men who have nothing left to prove, but everything to leave behind. And that's the key. It's not about competing. It's about leaving an emotional imprint so unique that not even silence can erase it. The emotional signature is the kind of ending that doesn't feel like a goodbye. It feels like a quiet invitation for her to keep thinking about you. It's not about writing more. It's about writing with truth. A phrase like, "I'm leaving you this message like someone who leaves a flower at your door, without ringing the bell, just to make you smile when you find it," says more than any long speech ever could. Because it doesn't demand, it doesn't pressure, it doesn't expect. It just leaves a mark, and that mark stays. Most men write hoping for a reply, but you are going to write to leave a presence. And that That is unforgettable. Keep sending messages without soul, without closure, without intent, and you'll keep ending up frustrated. You'll feel like you give and get nothing, like you speak and no one listens, like you exist but don't matter. And at this point in life, that's a slow poison. It's relying on external validation to feel like you still count. It's begging for attention like someone holding out their hand for crumbs. No, that ends here. You're not here to settle anymore. You're here to leave a mark, to make it clear that your presence isn't optional, it's memorable. But you won't get there with empty phrases. You'll get there by embracing a different mindset, the mindset of a man who no longer needs to be liked, but dares to be real, who, instead of seeking approval, leaves a message like someone leaving a legacy. Aware of his worth, steady in his words, and at peace knowing he doesn't need to convince anyone to be remembered. That's how you sign with your soul. That's how a good morning becomes a presence that lingers. And now that we've reached the end of these 5 messages, it's your turn to decide. Are you going to keep writing just to fill space? Or are you going to start writing to leave a mark? Because what happens next is entirely up to you. If you've made it this far, let me be clear. You're not like the rest. Because not everyone sticks around until the end of a message that doesn't sugarcoat things, that doesn't flatter the ear, but shakes the mind instead. Most people are looking for distraction. You are looking for truth, and that already puts you on a different level. What you saw today isn't a collection of lines to make someone fall for you. It's a set of tools to leave a mark. Because life isn't about being charming, it's about being unforgettable. And with every message you send, you have a choice. Repeat what everyone else says, or make sure she thinks about you all day. This channel exists for one very clear reason, because there are men, and yes, a few women too, who are tired of living on autopilot, tired of begging for attention, tired of feeling invisible. We don't sugarcoat reality here. We say things the way they are, so you can finally see what no one else shows you and act where you used to just react. I'm Celia, and this is House of Wisdom, a space for those who aren't afraid of the truth and are ready to reclaim their dignity, their strength, and their presence in a world that's trying to dim their light. If this message stirred something inside you, leave a comment saying, "I'm going to leave a mark," and tell me which country you're watching from. Not for the stats, but to know how many of us have decided we won't live asleep anymore. Subscribe now and become part of this community that's chosen to wake up. And don't keep this content to yourself. Share it with someone who also needs to stop being invisible. And don't go just yet. The conversation isn't over. Watch either of the 2 videos on your screen right now. I promise you, one of them holds the next truth you've been needing to hear. This is just the beginning.